Hello everyone, welcome to my live stream. My name is Denise Hutchins and I'm broadcasting to you from Studio Mikarts. Our charity of the month is Veganuary, and there are a few ways you can help me, help them, help the animals. One is donate to our fundraiser here on Twitch. I have set up a £10, that's British pounds, goal, very small, modest goal. You can also help simply by watching my stream and bringing your friends, because I'll be making my own donation at the end of the month based on my unique viewers count. The third way you can help is go find their link either in my Twitch description, or if you're watching this on YouTube after I've finished the live stream, in the description there will be a link to Veganuary. You can donate to them directly and find out more about them on their website. Today is Thursday, which means it's time for more illustration. I literally just left all my stuff out from yesterday. I didn't even put it away because I knew that I would be right back at it today. I'm looking at my thumbnail sketches here, and I've not really found one that I'm 100% about, but the one that I like the most so far, there's still room to do another set at the bottom of this page or do some more on this page. But out of the ones I did yesterday, these thumbnail sketches for this illustration project, I'm liking this one the best. And just a little introduction in case anyone is watching who didn't watch the previous stream. I am working on my Maginaturalist sketchbook series, which is a series of 4x6 or 6x4 depending on the orientation inch in size, illustrations, just black ink on white paper, and the story behind them is that a Maginaturalist, which is magic plus naturalist, is traveling the world and documenting the magical beings that she encounters in her sketchbook. So I've been using my encyclopedia of magical creatures, going through A to Z. We are on F now. F, the first entry on F, was Fafnir, which yesterday I was super stoked because I just finished reading a book where it's the Fafnir story. So it's like I'm doing fan art now after finishing that book earlier this week. But as I was looking at these thumbnails, this one seemed the most appropriate to the project, the story. The story is the Maginaturalist. Well, Fafnir is this terrible, frightening, dangerous dragon. He was actually originally a dwarf and turned into a dragon because he fell under the curse of this gold, and so he became a dragon to protect it and hoard it. And so it feels like this one would be more appropriate to the story of the Maginaturalist, because the idea that she could get this close to him. So this I'm going to zoom in so you can see these better. This is my other favorite out of these 12. I like this one a lot too. I like these two a lot out of all these ones that I've done. But this one I don't think is very realistic. Maybe she'd be looking through binoculars or something, but that would be super annoying because she'd have to keep putting her sketchbook down, pick up the binoculars. The idea that she could get this close to him safely and spend time sketching him just doesn't seem realistic to the story. So this seems a little bit more realistic. She's a little farther off and maybe not disturbing him or alerting him. Or even if he's aware of her presence, he's not worried about her because she's still so far away. That said, we don't have to just stick with these. We can try some other ideas. I've had a nice full night's sleep, so let's just try something else. Let's look at the notes from yesterday that I took. Oh wow, this goes through the page. That's why I don't always write on the back page, but this is all just sketching and brainstorming, so it's okay. What I mean is the markers bled through onto this side. But this says, so hideous wingless dragon, worm, understood animal language, called the Embracer. So something I feel like I haven't done is having him come up from the bottom. He's always from the top down. Like his head is always coming around from this direction. Like his shoulders are always on the left side of my composition. Oh, except for this one. This is the only one that's different. What if we have him coming up from the bottom? So maybe we'll try this top-down view. Could do a little closer. And his like arm is visible here. And then his body's coming across. You can see his body. Like his back leg, I guess. Something like that. And then using this marker to see what that looks like with the contrast between the gold. So I really need to focus on the contrast because I'm doing the final piece in black and white. No gray, no color. So being able to see the balance between positive and negative space. So in this composition, he's basically all just laying on top. We're looking at a top-down view of him laying on the gold hoard. And an element that I was really liking, that is sort of my own supposition about this, because it's not really mentioned. What's mentioned is that his blood, if consumed, gives you the power to understand all languages, not just all human languages, but all animal languages as well. And that made me think, well, there's a good chance then that he himself understands all animal languages, period, human and otherwise. So I liked the idea, and that's what I have going on here, of animals, or at least birds. Birds are the ones that are specifically mentioned in his story. Once he's killed and his blood has been drunk by the so-called hero. There's not really any real heroes in the story of Fafnir and everyone else. It's just, everyone is just horrible. But it's birds in particular that are key in the story, being able to understand the bird's language. So I've been really liking the idea of including birds in the scene just as a reference to that element of his story, a visual reference to that. And in this scene, right now I'm not seeing a place to like have birds speak. I mean, I guess they could just be like sitting on his back right here. Like roosting on his back. So I guess that would still work. What if we do a landscape orientation with his head coming in from the right instead of it's always coming in from the left. So it's coming in from the right and down. For some reason I'm always imagining him sleeping or just laying down, I guess. Here's a back leg. It's about the same amount of zoomed in as the one I just did. Not necessarily a problem, but now that I've identified the idea of the Maginaturalist being very close to him is not realistic, considering how dangerous he is and how jealously he's guarding this hoard, because it's not just he's a dragon and he loves his gold. He was taken by the curse of this gold, and that's what caused him to turn into a dragon and guard it and all this stuff. Oh, Sarah, hello. Yay, so glad to see you. Oh, I love you too. Hello, bestie. Thank you so much for resubscribing. I'm so happy. Thank you. 16 months. Wow. Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm reading your message properly. I was just so happy to see your name in the chat. Got the notice late. Oh, yay! So glad you could make it. Hooray! I haven't even gotten started. Well, I don't want to say in earnest. This is an earnest start, but I haven't started on the main piece yet. I'm still figuring out what I want to do with the composition. So if you just popped in, I'm working on another Maginaturalist sketchbook piece. And as you can see, I've got almost 16 thumbnails done. Good job, me. It's hard to do thumbnails. It's hard to think of lots of different ideas. But I'm trying to figure out what is the best composition. I'm still liking this one the best, but without trying to come up with lots of other ideas, it's like if you're digging and you find a coin and you're like, sweet, I found a quarter or whatever. But if you keep digging, you might find like a gold doubloon or whatever, you know. So that's what I'm trying to do right now. I'm working on Fafnir, the Norse dragon. And yeah, just trying to think of some different ideas. I have a lot of this swirling. I mean, I do really like this swirling. How about we do one where he's sort of standing? We have not done one where he's standing, period. We have not done one with him standing at all. That's probably because the encyclopedia said his name Fafnir means the embracer, which I assume is from embracing the gold. So that's probably why I've always shown him like curled around it. But that doesn't mean we can't do something different. We could have him, so say we have him just coming straight at the viewer, which is actually kind of scary because it's the Maginaturalist as the viewer. But he's like, wait, you know what? Let's have him swirling back at the body, swirling back and forth. If he's like approaching. Instead of just sitting, he's actually doing something. So if his tail's like that, it's gonna come around. Maybe his tail comes up and swirls around like that. Something like that. Maybe a slightly different pose, but something like that. And let's see what the contrast would be like. This Fafnir will definitely be darker than the gold hoard. So the gold hoard should be shiny and bright, so Fafnir is definitely going to be dark. Yeah, I'm excited. Whether or not I go down this path, ultimately, this is definitely something I haven't tried before. Having him standing, having him looking straight at the viewer. I'm going to try a landscape version. We could have him, so maybe let's have his head up this time. And then his body is going out like this. It's going back, but also off to the side. I like having his tail. I like the idea of the tail coming up. And then his hoard of gold. His cursed treasure. It's like in this story, Fafnir is just as much a victim as he is anything else, because he doesn't start acting bad until he gets taken by the Gold curse. Ooh, I like that shape. I like that shape for him. I don't know if I like the shape of the negative space, though. Let's keep moving. Let's keep moving on to the other side. Alright, I gotta move my stuff a little bit so that I can work on the other side of my sketchbook. There we go. Right? That's a Batman quote, right? You either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain. Pretty sure that's it. Yep. Because this story is pretty much like either you do terrible things or you have terrible things done to you. That's all the characters in this story. So yeah, that's actually quite an appropriate, because the so-called hero of the story for Fafnir is Sigurd / Siegfried, depending on where the culture of the story is coming from. And yeah, Sigurd is not that nice of a guy. So he's a so-called hero, but yeah. So that's totally appropriate. So I want to do, let's do another uppy standy one. But let's have him like looking over his shoulder. And it's like more from the side. And then we can have his tail coming up here. I've been drawing his legs like the lizard that I'm basing him off of, but I think I want to give him a little bit more robust because lizards are naturally relatively small. Maybe I'll look up what Komodo dragon hands look like, and I'll use those as the base for the hands because these look a little too delicate for what a giant dragon is supposed to look like. Right? And it just goes like that through the whole story. It goes through like generations of people. Generations of people just taking each other out for revenge, for greed. And yet, it's still a great story. It's weird. It's so violent. It's so dark. And I still enjoyed it. I still enjoyed reading it. It probably helps that it was J.R.R. Tolkien who wrote the main part of the version that I read, which is his version. It's not like a translation or something. It's his version of it where he's made some artistic decisions and stuff. And then also having Christopher Tolkien, J.R.R. Tolkien's son, and his editor after he passed away, all of his input about J.R.R. Tolkien's thought process, and also just like the history and the culture of that region, including the storytelling, the language, the actual sort of military and government history of the areas, like the sort of national history, I guess. It was so interesting. That was my second time reading that book, and I quite liked it again this time, even though it's so dark. Gator hands. Yeah, I actually want to look at it. Gators are definitely a similar, I'm trying to think of what to search. Similar, let's look at Komodo dragon first. Similar idea, because it's just a really, really big reptile. Yeah, it does make a difference. So Komodo dragon, here's a good picture showing the hand, does not have those super long, delicate, more bird-like fingers like the lizard, the actual lizard that I was drawing, this one over here. I didn't actually write down the name of it. I hope I remember in a second to do that. But this one drew these. This is a back foot, front foot. They have more human-like, especially the front foot. I mean, look at that. It looks like a human. Long, thin ones. It blocked. It blocked you, but you're using this term in earnest, so I'm going to allow it. And Exie is here. Hello. I'm so glad to see you too. Happy New Year. Oh, and I forgot to wish Sarah Happy New Year. Happy New Year, Sarah, too. On stream, Happy New Year. I think I wish you Happy New Year in some other context. Anyway, and Exie resubscribed too. Thank you so much. 26 months. Amazing. Thank you, everyone. How are you, Exie? Did you have a great holiday season and New Year? I don't know how many holidays you have there. Is it like here in America where there's like 50 holidays going on at the end of the year, at the turn of the year? Or oh, Sarah got a card for me yesterday. Yay! I'm so glad that you got your card. Was it the thank you card with the little animals? Alright, so I think I am going to use... Oh, it doesn't want to focus now. Well, anyway, you can see, I think, even with it blurry, maybe. Camera, come on, work with me here. Well, whatever. I'll just describe it to you in words. The Komodo dragon hands is more like a paw with big talons coming out. It's more like this shape instead of this shape. And that makes me feel a lot better about creating a dragon, because with this really long, delicate fingers, it doesn't seem like it would be like a 60 foot or 60 meter. I keep saying that. I know those aren't equivalent. I'm like a 60 foot or 60 meter. Like, we don't know how big this dragon is. But yeah, having these flatter, or not flatter, but stouter. Like, they're more, yeah, it's more like a paw than this. Than a hand. It's more like a paw than a hand. Look how big their tongue is. Look at that. Whoa! Huge. So we'll have most of the dragon be that lizard that is actually endemic to the region where Fafnir's story originated. But we're going to give the Komodo dragon feet, so that it makes more sense for such a large creature. Oh no, I'm sorry about that. You've been sick for weeks. That's terrible. Aw. Well, I'm glad you're feeling better now. Are you all the way better or still getting better? Aw. I'm glad that you are getting better either way, though. Wow, I'm sorry that you were sick for New Year and stuff. What face? This is the emo. Ooh. Okay, so I figured out what I want to do. I do like this shape here, but it's not much different from what I've got going on over here. How about a close-up one? I know I had already discounted the idea of doing close-up, but let's just try it for the sake of the thumbnail. What if we do a close-up one? Straight on. We haven't done that. So he's looking directly at the viewer. Or at least, well, I don't know if lizards actually can look forward like this. I mean, he's a dragon, but I'm basing it off of a lizard, so the eye placement. Of course, I could change the eye placement. It doesn't have to be exactly like the naturalistic one. But change the eye placement a little bit so that he can look forward. And then I really still love the idea of like a bird. A bird, a couple birds sitting on his head. Because even though he's this terrible dragon guarding the horde, if he understands animal language, then maybe they would actually be his allies. because they can communicate and come to an understanding. So this one I've got so like he's turning his neck. But we could also do one where it's just straight on his whole body. We would make it a little smaller. And he's supposed to be a terrible, terrorizing creature. Let's do something like this. Now I've got the vision of the Komodo dragon feet. What if he curls back up? I just can't imagine the Maginaturalist hanging around, though, to draw this. She would be like, oh, crap, and run. Oh, you're still getting better. Okay, keep getting better. I'm sending you healing thoughts. Everybody send the healing thoughts to Axie. Keep getting better for reals. I don't like hearing that when people are sick. I hate being sick, so I like empathize when someone's like, I'm sick, and I'm like, no. Oh, and thank you for your lovely comment. Thank you. I'm so glad to hear you love the thumbnails. Yay! Saying they're so cool. Thank you. That makes me feel really good. It's been so long. I took 3 weeks off. So I did not draw or anything. Even though the common advice is, you'll have to draw every day. You're not a real artist if you don't draw every day. I don't draw every day. I tried to for years. That's just not how I work. So coming back this week, I did feel a little rusty. But that's why I'm taking my time with this. I'm not rushing through. I'm forcing myself to think of new ideas and keep trying stuff. I mean, still so far, I like this one best. But we can consider this warm-up as well, not just trying to find a composition. He really takes up a lot of the frame here. Maybe we do one a little bit farther off. So we're going to do the same thing. I guess it's a lot like this one. We'll try to fit him into the frame a little better, maybe. Right? Exactly. Forcing it is burnout territory, says Sarah. Yep. I think my experience... Okay, so based on my experience, I think that there's a little bit of maybe toxicity is a little too strong of a word, but an unhealthy focus in the professional art world, especially among people starting out and just trying to figure it out, to follow a magic formula, and that if you just follow this magic formula, then everything will work out eventually. And to be honest, that has not been my experience. I've tried to do all the things, you know. You have to do this. You have to... Something I gave up on a while ago was you have to be posting new work every day on social media. You have to post every day. You have to post new stuff every day. And yeah, it's not very... For one, it's never worked out for me. And maybe it's just because I make weird work. I don't make very popular stuff. I make niche stuff that I like. So it's like I don't actually like a lot of popular things. I learned certain popular things, but other things I like, meh. And so I think that comes through in my work. But then there's also just like, I guess it's FOMO. And people, so with the draw everyday thing, people look at someone else who does do that and sees that and sees them as successful, and so they have a fear of missing out. If I don't draw every day, I'm not going to enjoy that success. But that's not necessarily the only way that you can enjoy success or enjoy being an artist or enjoy creating art, period. Like just creating something that you love and enjoy. So yeah, I've learned to take a lot of advice with a grain of salt and to think very hard about how it will help me in particular achieve my goals. Does it line up with my goals? Because there can be conflicting advice, like you should do this and you should do this, and it's the opposite thing. So you've got to think really critically about what do you want. I don't know what the back feet of the Komodo dragon looks like. I love these. I love this hook shape I've got going here. One bit of advice that I have taken to heart is the thumbnails. It works so well for me. If I can make myself sit down and do them, which live streaming super helps with, it really makes my work so much better. Oh my goodness, 2 years on daily designs. Awesome. Good job. I forgot you were doing that. Do you want to share any? You can if you want. If you post them in the chat, I can actually put them on the screen. I set it up so I could do that. I could share. You don't have to, though, if you don't want to. Just saying. Now you're hating doing it, though. I can't remember. It was like 800 and something days you were trying to aim for, so that's almost 3 years? Or how long do you have left? 5 years? No, 800 is almost 3 years. Well, I really like the designs that you've shown me before, so I'm sorry to hear you're not liking it anymore, but I actually totally understand that. That's why live streaming has been helping me so much, because even though I love illustration, there's certain parts in the process that I hate. And so doing it on live stream, I have to do it. Like these thumbnails. If I wasn't streaming with you guys, I would not be doing this many thumbnails. I'd like give up, or I'd procrastinate with something else. I'd be like, oh, well, I'll just clean my studio today. I can't think, or whatever. No, I'm sitting down here and doing it thanks to you. Oh, you don't even have a year left. You can do it. You got this, XIII. Oh, let's take a look at this. Oh no! Okay, let me see. It won't let me. Do you have them anywhere else than Instagram? I have issues with Instagram. It's not letting me log in with Facebook. Blast it. I hate how Instagram just won't let you can't just like look at something, you know? You have to be logged in. It won't let me look. No, I want to look. I mean, I can see the little preview, the little squares. Well, maybe I'll just show that for now. Okay, let's see. Put this in a... Put this over... I haven't done this in a while. Here we go. Yeah. Oh, you don't have it anywhere else. Okay, I'll just show it this way. Haha, boom! see if I can zoom in. I'm like showing it on my, no, not send page. How do I zoom in? I can't figure it out. I'm looking at my other screen, but anyway. See, I love this kind of thing. When you do this, like, I wish I wouldn't, I can't point at it. But this cool color with the warm. And then, so you've got two contrasts here. They're not good anymore. No, wait, look at this. So, you've got two contrasts here. One, a color, so I'm looking at this boring one, but I'm not going to hover over it because it does that. One, you have the contrast between the very cool blue and white, and then those warm yellows and reds. And then you've got the contrast between the word itself and perhaps the font that you used. So the word says boring. The font is relatively simple. But then you've got this big crazy swirl going on, which is not boring at all. So, what does this one say? I can't see. It's so small. I can't see what it says, but this looks like a staircase. This is such a cool visual. Because on the one hand, it looks like a staircase, and then it also looks like a shooting star. Or like a comet. Well, I guess that's a reason for me to get Instagram figured out, because I would like to be able to share that more big. Close but out of reach. Interesting. Is there somewhere specific you were getting your words from that you're using? It's been so long I can't remember. I'm really excited by the fact that you're still working on that. I feel kind of bad that I forgot that you were working on it. There's another down-facing one, but we'll just put like the legs sticking out. Oh, I just had a great idea. All this time I've been thinking I have to show Fafnir's head. When I drew the legs just now, I thought, how cool would it be just to show the foot on the gold? Let's try that next. Maybe we could have little birds on this one too. I'm like, could be walking with like a fox. Because I was thinking that it doesn't always have to be birds. So it says it could be other animals. Top-down view. But I want to try this idea I just thought of. Focusing in, not even showing the dragon, showing just his foot on the gold. And then maybe again, I really like the idea of incorporating the birds. So sort of like the foot on the gold, and then some specific birds mentioned in the legend as I read it. The book I just finished is the crows. So I'm thinking about crows as the birds that I depict. So the scene will just be filled with the gold hoard. I will just see his terrible foot. More big. Yep. I want to show it more big. I'm going to be honest, I actually closed my Instagram account after I found out that they use your images in AI training without, and you can't really opt out. I'm like, no, I don't want you to use my images, especially if you're not going to pay me. So I closed my Instagram account. Unfortunately, Facebook does the same thing, but I've connected with so many more people on Facebook that to close my page there, that would have a lot more consequences. So, oh, Exie, are you talking about your project? You hope to forget about your project once it's done? Yikes. Well, you've only got, so 150 days. Okay, Google, what day will it be in 150 days?
It's Sunday, June 15th, 2025.
So in actual 150 days, it would be Sunday the 15th of June. And you said you had less than 150 days, actually. So, you just gotta hang in there until June-ish. You got this. Okay, I'm gonna do the same thing, but we're gonna have the foot be like huge. We're just showing the scary foot on the gold. This does seem like a good silhouette. But when we're showing it this close, does it really say dragon? And also, the idea of the Maginaturalist being this close to him is not realistic for the story. I thought that these crows would also be darker. Yay! I love that wiggle cat. Cat Van Bingus dance. Woo! Makes you want to dance when you look at it. I think I'll try to fill this page with ideas. And then I'll call it good. And I will select an idea. I'm still really liking this one. I think that I mentioned it yesterday too. The idea of these birds, so having two down here landed, one coming in, maybe talking to Fafnir. If I move these ones in toward the middle, we could have a triangle going on between the eyes. So like the eyes of the birds and the dragon would create a triangle. And then the balance between the negative space and the positive space I quite like. Even though the negative space takes up more room, the way that the positive space is filling it, it just feels really satisfying. I do actually like this idea, but this makes it look like the birds are actually more of the focus. This one's a really cool use of the space. I haven't really put the birds in it at all. Also I still like this hook shape. I'm going to try this hook shape. Slightly different. Make it bigger. Something like this. Arm coming out. Other arm. I guess we could just say that his leg is off screen, and then the other leg wouldn't be visible because of the angle. Maybe. If we put a couple birds here. Maybe a bird on his back. I guess it's becoming a similar idea to this one, just slightly different pose. can't remember. It didn't mention it. I'm going to search. Did Fafnir breathe fire? Not Faulkner. I didn't say anything like Faulkner except for the F. Fafnir. Did Fafnir breathe fire? Alright, let's look at Wikipedia. My book that I just read is upstairs, so I'm not going to stop to go get it. Appearance? Would they talk about if he breathed fire? Because if he breathed fire, I could show that. That would be cool. Interesting. So I'm using my encyclopedia exclusively for the main influence of the appearance of these creatures. But this entry says that in some versions, well, I'll just read it to you. While in the form of a worm in Fafnismal, and I do not know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, so take that with a grain of salt, Fafnir is described as flightless and snake-like, while at the same point in the narrative of the later Volsunga saga, he has shoulders suggesting legs, wings, or both. This change is consistent with the wider trend in Germanic portrayals of dragons and likely results from influence from continental Europe that was facilitated by Christianization and the increased availability of translated romances. Doesn't talk about whether he breathes fire. Medieval depictions. Snake shoulders. Oh, Exie's heading out. Goodbye and good night. Thank you so much for stopping by and chatting with me. It's so great to hear from you again. Get better. I hope you feel better soon. Good night, sweet dreams. Sarah, snake shoulders. Right? Yep, this says originally snake, and then they started giving him shoulders just because as the centuries went by, ideas about what dragons look like changed. Here's like this old one. Old version. There's not even any legs on this. He's just like a giant snake, period. But what about, does he like breathe fire? I feel like it mentioned it. Oh, look, this even talks about this. Oh, how cool. Listen to this. The Wikipedia article talks about the book I just read. The story of Fafnir has continued to have influence in the modern period, such as in the works of J.R.R. Tolkien, who drew inspiration from the tale of Fafnir in his portrayals of Smaug and Gollum. Oh, there's even more inspiration than that. That book I read has multiple, so like Mirkwood, Middle Earth, Ent, and there was another one directly influenced by Old Norse words or Old English, at which these stories are either in or influenced. Anyway, that's not the point of this. I'm just trying to find out if he breathes fire. Maybe I should. It's 10 minutes early. But maybe I shall take my break early, 10 minutes early, and then I can go get my book and see if he breathes fire. So I'll do that on my break. So we're going to do little bit early. I also might take a tiny bit longer break because I want to look through the book too. But let's take a break and get up, stretch, give our eyes a break, get some water or a snack. I'm going to put on my be right back sign. I'll be back in about 5 minutes. Welcome back, everyone. I hope you had a great break. I got that book that I was telling you about that I have been so excited that Fafnir ended up being the next entry in the Maginaturalist sketchbook series because I just finished this book on Monday. I'm trying to see. I don't think he's on here, but I was trying to find the part that I remember there being a specific note about Sigurd dug a hole, and there's debate about whether he dug the hole to catch Fafnir's blood in. And then the argument of this book was, no, that doesn't make sense, because if he stabbed from below and the blood fell down and he wanted to catch it in the hole because it's poisonous, he would have to be in the hole, so he would be poisoned or whatever. And so it made more sense that he was in the hole to avoid, and I feel like it was flame. So that's the part that I'm trying to find where it talks about that. So just going to quickly flip through here, because the reason why I'm so obsessed with this is because that could be an awesome visual. Not just Fafnir with his gold hoard and maybe some bird friends, but breathing fire as well. That's really exciting and such a strong visual. And the contrast between the light and shadow works great with black and white. Yeah, harvesting dragon blood for evil rituals. Pretty much, it's so, like, everybody is so deceitful, and they're betraying each other left and right, and nobody is really good in this story. So I'm just trying to see. So this is the introduction. If you're interested in this kind of thing, I do really recommend this book. It's so interesting. The main story itself is interesting, and then also the idea of this old style of poetry and the history of the region, like the real world history, how this story has changed depending on where it went, and it like incorporated elements based on real history that happened. And so it's got like Attila the Hun in this story, and so it's got this historical figure, but also he's like mythicized in it, and it changes depending on the source of the story, and so interesting. But I'm just trying to see the part about why Sigurd dug the hole to go in order to slay Fafnir. That's what I'm trying to find. Spelling of Norse names. That's another thing that's wonderful. This helps you with pronunciation because it has a whole section about spelling. Verse form of the poems, which is also helpful because these poems are not like any other poem that you've ever read. It's a very unique style. Oh, here we go. Notes on the poems by the author. Here we go. Wilson family. And Hilda. Odin. No, not talking about. Okay, well, here's the main one. The actual poem. Let's see. Okay, on Vari's Gold. Here it is. This is where the curse comes from. What? It should have been around here. Where's the part where he slays Maybe it's farther along than I remembered. Son of Signy. Oh yeah, Sigmund is the father of Sigurd. And interesting, historically, it's arguable that they were the same person and they got turned into two characters in order to facilitate the change in the story as it went down the generations. Okay, Sigurd born. Okay, so I just wasn't looking far enough. Because there's more notes here, so this must be it. Regan. Yes, this is probably where it is, because Regan is the third dwarf brother. So it was Fafnir, Regan, and Otur. Otur was killed, and then a blood money was demanded for that by the father. And then Loki put in a cursed ring because Loki is a jerk. And that's where all of this darkness came from. And also Loki was the one that killed the brother Otur. So Loki is kind of the bad guy. He's the baddest of the bad guys in this story, apparently. Okay. Here we go. I think Sigurd dug a pit in the path which the dragon took. Blah, blah, blah. Here we go. On this matter, my father noted in a lecture. Odin and his advice do not appear very intelligible. The pits do not seem of much use, for in any case, Sigurd has got to be in one, and it is only in the one in which he is that the blood is likely to pour down. Blah, blah, blah. Could... Blah, blah, blah. Haha! I found it! Of course it had to be Loki. Yep. It's also Odin. Especially in this version. J.R.R. Tolkien's version specifically has Odin causing all of these problems because he actually wants these characters to be killed eventually. So, like, he sets them on this path on purpose because it's introduced that for Ragnarok he needs a warrior who has been tasted by death but is deathless, which means that he's died but now lives in Valhalla, and so he'll be able to... Anyway, I don't want to give too much away from this, so you can read it. But yeah, Loki is right there. He's like his Odin's right-hand man the whole time helping out. Okay. Right. So, this was the single line that I was looking for. Christopher Tolkien, the editor, says, his view, his meaning J.R.R. Tolkien, was that the original significance of the pit was to enable Sigurd to escape the blast of flame which passed over his head. Then it says CF 27 lines 1 through 3. CF 27. What's CF? Not Gudrun. CF 27. Regan. Here we go. Here's the actual stanza. The fire and fume over fearless head rushed by, roaring. Rocks were groaning. The black belly bent and coiling over hidden hollow, hung and glided. So fire! Let's do it. Let's try some fire thumbnails. Awesome. Okay, first a really cool visual, just flaming up into the air. spouting flames up into the air. Yeah, I have to do rudimentary sound effects for my flames. Flame confirmed. Sarah. Yeah. Woohoo! I remembered correctly. Sometimes when I remember stuff, it's actually jumbled up in my head. And I'm remembering something similar, but it's actually from something else, you know? So I'm very happy that this is something I actually remembered correctly. It was flame. There was a specific reason for there to be flame. Hold on. I'm going to get a sip of water out of my Smile water bear. Ah! Well, there's one. Let's do a closer one. And it's one like this, but the flame is being breathed. Of course, he's gonna have big, scary teeth. So we have super close up. There's no room whatsoever for any birds in this, though. Because I wouldn't have him roasting the birds. I think he'd be friends with the birds because they'd warn him. He'd provide them with protection because they can communicate, so they understand each other perfectly. He'd provide them protection in exchange for them alerting him to people coming and trying to take his gold. So in this whole story, this gold is the source of everyone's misfortune and suffering. So it's extremely important. So I would think he'd want any help he could get. And birds probably enjoy having someone on their side too. So maybe he's... What about this one? He'll be... breathing down. Breathing the flames down. Maybe they're hitting up against something. Guess the thing with the flames is I'll have to use a lot of hatching to get this contrast. Well, not necessarily hatching, but a lot of ink. Because as it was, I had really strong contrast in mind with the gold being very bright and Fafnir being very dark. But if we've got... Fafnir will still be very dark, but the flames would now even be brighter than the gold. So we would have 3, which it could be great because it would be an interesting... It would be interesting visually to have 3 levels of contrast. Or 3 contrasting levels? I think you get what I'm saying. Because now we have the flame is the brightest thing, the gold is the middle brightest thing, and then Fafnir is the darkest. And maybe there would even be some sort of like transition. As the farther it gets away from the flame, the darker the gold gets. You know, something like that could happen too. Roasted birds. No! It's a truly evil Fafnir who doesn't care if he can understand the birds. He roasts them anyway. Everybody stays away from my gold. Actually, in this story, that would totally be the case because freaking everybody gets killed or kills themselves or it's just awful. There's no happy endings. Okay, I have 3 angles so far. What Maginaturalist is something I haven't done yet. Of all these sketches, I have not done looking from behind. Catching him from behind. And maybe that's how the Maginaturalist could get a little bit closer. There's not really room for flame in this though. I'm drawing it, but yeah, the idea of behind is I'm not even going to put that one in. Marker. I don't need to look at the contrast. I want to try a different one. Oh, no, I want to try another different one. I don't think I finished my thought. I'm having so many thoughts all at once. The Maginaturalist viewing from behind feels like a great angle to explore, both in the sense of the literal viewing angle and also the angle of like the story that we're telling through this sketch. Because maybe she would feel safer getting a little closer thinking, oh, Fafnir can't see me. And maybe the story is Fafnir is perfectly aware that she's there. But his bird messengers are also aware she's not there for the gold. She's there to document magical creatures. And he's like, all right, fine. And so she's thinking, yeah, I'm getting away with this. This is awesome. And he's like, she's not a threat, so I won't do anything. I'm not going to bother because she's not trying to steal my gold. So she might see him. I don't think flame comes into this because flame is a defensive measure. I can't quite get it. He's like not sitting in the flame. If we want to see him from behind. Ah, here we go. There we go. This is him from behind. I'm going to do the birds on his head thing again. But maybe I'll just do one, because when I put 2 birds on his head, it makes it look like bunny ears. That's not the look I'm going for. Maybe we'll put one on the ridge of the gold hoard and one flying in too. It's like the Maginaturalist doesn't realize it, but these birds are reporting to him. There's someone drawing you, but she's not interested at all in the gold. She just wants to record your presence. No gold dust detected. Exactly. What is that called? There's some term for that in video games, like aggro or something. He hasn't been set off. There's some term for setting off the right criteria to make a monster come at you in a video game. This is very interesting, different look. I kind of like it. I kind of like this from behind one. It's actually a lot like this one, but it's just from behind. The story could also be, so it's similar to this, and the reason why he's doing flame is sort of a warning. So if we pull out even farther, we're still viewing him from behind. So he's embracing. His name means the embracer. He's embracing his gold hoard. And he's just doing a little warning display because his bird allies have let him know Maginaturalist is there. She being a little bit naive and also just super excited to have spotted him, doesn't necessarily recognize that what he's doing is specifically to warn her. She's just like, oh, awesome. I gotta sketch this. I've gotta capture this moment. Look at the power. Look at that amazing display. Oh, kind of like that. Where's his bird friends, though? They don't want to be anywhere near the flames, so they will be down here, I think. Maybe one is sort of like dashing off over there. Like, oh god, crap. Now, I don't know if I can fit in birds in a way that I like in the sky, because they're going to be scared, and it feels unbalanced to have the birds only on this side. I could have some birds over here, but I feel like they'd be running away. Trying to protect their feathers from catching on fire. And the thing is, again, somehow I would need to make the scene behind him a middle tone using only black ink, so it'll have to be hatching or something. So my birds in the sky would not really be visible. I ran out of room. I'm coming up with too many ideas. There's no such thing, but to be honest, I'm having a great time with this. This is so fun. Maybe it's because I just finished reading his story, and so I'm really into it. But it also might be good to just pick something. I created this series so that I could have an illustration series that doesn't take months to create a piece. So I don't want to spend too long either. Oh wow, how is there? Oh no, I've still got time. I was like, what? I thought there was only 10 minutes left, but I start on the half hour, so there's still plenty of time. Plenty of time left. I actually do like this one. I like this one a lot. So not having the flame on top of the gold allows the gold to stay shiny and bright. But then I can still incorporate that really cool and powerful element of flame. If you're hearing that, Aoife is snoring. She's under the desk to my left here. She's laying on her big bed and she's just snoring away. Her eyes are slightly open. I'm looking this over. All of my thumbnails. This one's really cool too. That coming toward the viewer. But I do really like this. We've got the motion of the S shape of the dragon. 3 levels of contrasting, not light, value, that's the term. We've got the brightest and a mid-tone and the darkest. And there's room for the birds that I really want to incorporate. I'm going to take this one, which is also the last one I did, and work it a little bigger. I think it's just going to go with this one. I like it a lot. It has so many parts to it that I really, really like. It's not a warning. He's showing off. How often does someone come just to admire him? That's a lot like a Smaug in The Hobbit. Although, of course, Bilbo was actually coming to steal stuff from him, but Smaug is like, look at how wonderful I am. Impressive, aren't I? And then Bilbo sees, haha, you have a big open spot right on your chest, but he doesn't tell him that. Okay, that's the story then. It's not a warning, he's just showing it off. And the Maginaturalist is eating it up. She's like, yes, this is awesome. Okay. Well, I suppose if I'm going to work it out larger, let's actually try to make it the appropriate ratio. But first I'm going to put some chapstick on because all of a sudden my lips are feeling super dry. That's much better. Okay, so I've got to do a little math. We're doing a 4x6. Yep, 4x6. So, let's see, there's a ratio calculator. I think this is it. Well, this one works, I guess. So if it's 4... doesn't want to type. There we go. By 6. And say we want to do... Well, this is in centimeters, though. Well, if we do... Oh, actually, if I do 4x6 centimeters, that should still be the same ratio, even though it's not the same measurement. This is a centimeters ruler. Wow, I never thought of that before. That for something like this, I could just do 4x6 centimeters and get a smaller... It might not be the right angle, but I'm just trying to get the right ratio in general. It might not be 90 degrees on each corner, but it's close enough for what I'm trying to do here. So the point is now trying to figure out the... So the thumbnail sketches are just figuring out ideas, the basic idea. Now I've picked an idea, so I'm going to work out more of the technical aspects of placements of stuff. So the actual composition in practical terms, if that makes sense. I don't know if I'm explaining myself right. But that's the reason I want a more precise frame to work in. I'm just going to draw 6 of these because it fits nicely on the page. I might not use them all, but if I need them all, they're going to be there. And if I get into a flow state, I don't have to stop to draw more unless I fill this page up. Right. It's close enough. Some of them are a little lopsided, but that's okay. Although, that said, I want to take my blue pen and divide. Well, we'll start. I guess we'll just do them all. We'll divide it into thirds. There are multiple ways of dividing up your frame, your workspace, but the rule of thirds is the most popular one. And I think it's because people, for some reason, we humans like viewing images that are composed along the rule of thirds. In one of my classes, it actually mentioned, I think it was a photography class, it mentioned that people were actually surveyed about this. Like, which image do you prefer? And the survey results were heavily in the favor of the rule of thirds. But there's also the rule of fifths, and I think sevenths. People really like it to be divided along a... Oh, this doesn't seem right. Along an odd number. Oh yeah, it's off. There we go. Once again, I did this slightly off. Just a bit. No symmetry. Yep, people prefer. And it's weird because when it's, say, like looking at faces, human faces, people actually prefer fake. Well, not fake. What is the term? I remember a study showing how, or at least a survey, I don't know if it was like an official scientific peer-reviewed, etc. study, but they took people's faces, like photographs, and then just mimicked so that now was a new person, as it were, that was the one side of the face turned into the other side so that it was actually perfectly symmetrical. And people actually preferred that even though it was unnatural. Alright, so this is hard because this is 4 centimeters, so it's hard to divide it. So it should be like 1 1/3. Ugh, I don't know about that far. I'm just gonna have to do close enough for this. I don't want to spend all day measuring stuff. So anyway, the point I was getting at is we humans tend to like faces that are perfectly symmetrical, even though it's unnatural, but when it comes to images, we actually prefer it to be asymmetrical. Because humans are so vain. We want it to be perfect. I think it's because we're perfectionistic. Almost done with this measuring stuff. Might not even need all of these, but like I said, I would rather do it all now and have them available than have to keep stopping to do this, because it interrupts my train of thought. And say if it takes me longer than today's stream to suss out the details, this will be ready for next week, resuming work on this. Okay, it's done. Hooray! So I've been using this bigger pen, but I think I'm going to go to a smaller size. Because with the thumbnail sketches, the point is just getting the idea down on paper. Now I want to get a little bit more detailed. So using a smaller pen will give me literally the space to do that. So what if we have the gold hoard coming up here to this upper third line? Oh, a nice big pile. And Fafnir's head is rising up. Yes, then he becomes visible over it. Or maybe he should be coming down and then his body's rising up over it. Oh, I don't like that. It's a tangent. No tangents, no tangents. I think this pen is already dying. It's not drawing. This is a brand new pen set too. That's disappointing. It became a lot longer in this in this version. So don't like this. It's a tangent right on the side. Alright. Yep. Let's try the gold hoard. Let's see, what do we got here? This gold hoard is about at the bottom third line. That's more like what I've drawn in the thumbnail sketch. And then that way, his head can be rising up off of it. Sort of like so he can sit up and get a big deep breath to exhale a magnificent spout of flame. I believe this pen is already practically dead. That is disappointing. I wonder if I have another one in my collection that I can replace it with. So I am drawing directly on the tip too. Sometimes with these type pens, I don't know if you can see this in the small camera, but with these little teeny tiny nibs, sometimes you have to draw straight down on them for them to work well. So I'm doing that with this one, and it's still not working. So what I'm finding is that when I'm drawing this at a larger size, I'm ending up putting Fafnir's body hanging over the gold, which I think is great. I think it's a lot more interesting, and maybe even a lot more realistic, because he's supposed to be this huge, terrible dragon, so terrible as in terrifying. That's what I looked up yesterday. The word hideous, which we often think of as ugly, and I was like, ugly? I don't want to draw an ugly dragon. I don't know how. And then I looked it up, and actually the word origin comes from a word that means terrifying. So it's supposed to be a terrifying dragon. But what if, so what I'm seeing is, my thoughts are going at 1,000,000 miles per hour right now. So I don't think I finished my thought, but the thought that's in my head right now is, since he's curving over, the way I feel like drawing it now that I'm drawing it bigger, is curving over this horde, because we're looking at him from behind, which I think is great. So what if we actually have his head rising up from this side instead? Now it looks like he's fighting with another dragon, but I know what I'm trying to do. Oh, I kind of like it. Because then we've got that shape going both ways. And he's called the Embracer. That's what his name means. And it's sort of like he's embracing the center of the image, because we've got him curving around this way and also curving around this way, so that it's like he's holding the center of the image, which is the big pile of gold. He just wants a hug. Yeah, everybody's problems could have been solved in this story instead of tragedy. If only people could just give each other a hug. Oh man, I really like this. So let's fit his bird buddies in. Doesn't actually leave us much room. But if we have the bird buddies on him, so we have bird buddy here. Maybe there's bird buddy here too. And then bird buddy flying away like, whoa! And we've got that triangle going on. Well, what if we have one up here, actually? Because then we can have... we could have a couple birds here. So then we could have a triangle effect. So if we don't have this one here. So if we have this triangle effect where we have a bird or a couple birds on this part of his body, and then a bird here on his tail, so it's coming to the more end part of his body. We have a bird flying away, or maybe flying towards him. Either way, flying there. We've got this triangle going on here. I'll use my blue pen. So we will end up making another triangle, which keeps showing up, and I like. So we had a triangle going on in this thumbnail as well. And this could frame his head and the gold here. What if we move the bird up like this? Or we could have two birds up there. What the heck? Why not? So we could have a triangle-ish shape. Like, not cut through his nose, because right here, having this bird right here, it cuts through his nose. It might actually be good to have two, because then either it's a quadrangle, which works because we've got this little line here, or if you follow the little lines past the birds, either way, we're not cutting through his face. So we have only this bird, the triangle cuts through his eye. If we have only this bird, the triangle cuts through his mouth. But if we have two, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I want to visualize this without this bird over his back legs. Wait, did I put a white ink pen in here? I did. Just use that. Wait, actually, I remember. I have this over here. This white acrylic marker. I wanted to keep it in here, but I've forgotten. It's just been sitting over on my other table. Use this to white out this bird here so I can see it better without this bird. This kit is getting so full, it's not going to be able to close. And I want to keep these out too to use for future sketching because it's working really well to have these markers available for the visualization of the contrast between elements. But they won't fit in here, so I got to figure out what to do about that. I don't have to figure it out right now, but okay. I want to let this dry before I redraw that back line. It's definitely still wet because I can see it shining when I move the page. But yes, I do like this idea of removing that bird there. While that does dry, I'm going to use this too. So, what should I do? So if I use curved lines coming out, radiating out from the fire blast, so the darkest element I want, or do I want it to be grr? I'm imagining the birds being crows because they're specifically mentioned. Not in the encyclopedia entry, but in the story about Fafnir that I just finished. They're black. So that would make them, they would have to be the darkest element in the piece. That would mean that this can't be black. The background, the sky or whatever it is behind, can't be black because then the crows flying away, which are an integral part of my triangle that I have set up here, they would not be visible. So I would need to use, I have to go to the similar to Baba Yaga that I did with the hatching for the moonlight and the night sky. I have to do a similar thing here. So that would mean Fafnir has to be super dark so that he can stand out on top of this dark. I mean, I guess he could be light, but then he's not standing out on the gold hoard, which is light. Ah! They can be seagulls. I guess that would work. They could be sparrows, actually. He can talk to anyone. Or at least that is the story that I'm telling myself. Because the actual story is that his blood gives other people the ability to speak any language. But I assume that means he also can. I'm just shaking my yummy green juice shake. Gonna have a little bit of it. It's so yummy. I've gotten back into my smoothies and shakes for weekday food because I'm just so busy. Now I'm back to work. Back to work for the new year. Yes, I think that we're going to have to make him the darkest element. In fact, I'm going to use a black one so we can really see the difference. I'm loving this placement though. I'm really loving this. It's like his body coming up and over. Oh, but then this crow will disappear. We'll have to do... Of course, there could be a fourth level. He could be lighter than the background, meaning this part that I've done all this scribbling on. Lighter than the background, but still darker than the gold and darker than the fire. Oh, I forgot about these birds too. So like the birds could be the darkest element actually if I want to keep them crows. Oh, I do love this though. I think it looks really cool. And then on the gold we could actually have a little bit of hatching, especially around his body because he's blasting the flame here, so the light will be coming down from here, so the gold will be getting a little bit of shadow from his body. And then we could just add this as the pile goes down. It's going away from the light, so it'll just naturally get darker as it gets farther from this point. I'm just looking at this. Okay, to give myself a little break from looking at it, I'm going to see if I have a replacement for this pen. And then maybe after I'm done searching through here, I'll have a clearer idea about what I want to do. So we're just working through these little knots. Okay, these are all black ink. This is white ink. Ooh, sorry about that overexposure on my main camera. It doesn't know what to do. This part is black, so it's like it needs more exposure. And then the white pens, like my hand. Poor camera doesn't know what to do. Okay, all this is black. Dang, the only other Copic pens I have that aren't in black are warm gray. I like the cool gray. So, okay. Oh, we don't. Gesundheit, Chappie. Gesundheit, girl. Chappie just had a little sneeze, if you heard that. Alright, well, I checked. That's such a disappointment. I just got that pen. Oh well, it's not the end of the world. I just got it for sketching anyway. there's less than 10 minutes left on my stream. I've just been so into this. There's a little pet hair on my desk. I was distracted by it. Just been so into this. The time is flying by, which is the best. I do really like this overall, so I'm just going to sketch it again. What I ended up having was the gold hoard starting at the 1/3 line and then sort of coming to its apex at the 1/3 of this 1/3. And then Fafnir is swirling. He really fills the bottom part. Bottom part of the image. And then his back foot is on this vertical 1/3 line. I think maybe what I'll do when I'm drawing him for the final version is not use reference and just use either what I've already drawn as reference or what I've looked at and remember. That way he'll look more like a fantasy creature than like a giant lizard. Because he is supposed to be a dragon. I did want to use a real lizard that is endemic to the region of these stories, but I don't want him to just look like a giant lizard. I want him to look like a dragon. So I will infuse the lizard version with just my existing fantasy memories, I guess. The fantasy influences that are floating around in my head. Flame. I always like the way it's been depicted. Flames coming from a dragon, that it doesn't start in the dragon's mouth, that it starts just outside the dragon's mouth. I've always liked that. I felt like it makes sense because then that way it doesn't burn the dragon. Okay, so I've got this same scene sketched out again. So we're going to add these two birds flying. Wait, this one was higher, and I like that. I like it being higher up here. Two birds flying. So the birds are the darkest because they're pure black. And this one I had just on him. Not up at the edge, but in the middle. And then we've got a couple more birds. And they are on the edge of him. I'm gonna have one looking one way and one looking the other way. Fireproof tongue. Yeah, you gotta keep the tongue safe. What's the point of breathing fire if you're just gonna burn your mouth off? I mean, it could be that I've seen also dragons that have the flame comes from inside, because you can see they have like the neck expand and you can just see the flame from within lighting up the skin. You know, have you ever looked at your own hand with the sun behind it, and you can actually see your hand is somewhat translucent when you have a light as powerful as the sun behind it? I think that is what people use when they have created the visual depiction of the dragon, and it's like the fire is in the throat, lighting it up from the inside, and you can see it glowing out. So that could be. They could have some sort of mucus that they create all through their, like maybe from their mouth all the way down to their stomach, and it's a fireproof substance. And then they have their fire creating gullet thing, and so the fire comes from there, and that's why they can breathe the fire out even through their throat and mouth. Ooh, and from like a Maginaturalist point of view, that could help them, because maybe the heat from the flame purifies their mouth and destroys bacteria and viruses and stuff. That's so cool. That's such a great idea. Thank you for that awesome idea that I wouldn't have had without you saying fireproof tongue. Not that it matters for this, but I love thinking of that kind of thing. Okay, so I am going to take a medium marker. So now my idea is, do I want medium? Do I want medium? Maybe I won't do marker, because I'm not going to fill it in. I just have ink and paper. Black ink and paper, and a single pen. I'm going to do it with this one, this bigger one that's not already dying. Okay, so I'm going to suss this out. So I've already filled these in. I'm imagining these crows, and then they're these dark points. They are the darkest points in the picture. So they end up making this technically a quadrangle, but it's framing within the frame of the format itself, framing our main character. So now my idea is the background. The background will be the next darkest thing, I think. Well, it's going to be a gradient, so maybe it'll be... probably depends on where it is. That's how you have to work this through. You can't just... Oh, well, you can, but then you run into this while you're working on the final one, and you're like, crap, what do I do? So that's why I'm working it out now. What should be the darkest thing? That's what I'm trying to figure out. The levels of darkness, and how I'm going to achieve that using just a single pen, dip pen with black ink, white paper. So right now we have 3 values. The darkest one, the middle-ish one, and the lightest one. So I want to think hard about, should Fafnir be darker than this background, or should he be lighter than this background? Actually, yes, now I'm thinking of it, I think he should be lighter than this background rather than darker, because we have 2 values that he's on top of. One, he's on top of the gold, which is gold is going to be one of the lightest values, except where there's shadow hitting it and just the natural shadow happening because it's a pile of gold and there's a very distinct light source here. So it's going to be quite dark around here on the gold, just because the shadow is being cast by the flame. But otherwise it's going to be very bright because it's also going to be catching a lot of light, especially right here. So if he's really dark, if he's the second darkest thing in this composition, that would mean that this part of his body is the most visually attractive because it's the greatest contrast. So it'll be a big contrast between the gold here and this part of his body. But it doesn't necessarily, that's not necessarily what we want, because his face is the most attractive part. As humans, we love faces. So making the greatest contrast be his face, I think that that's the way to go, which would mean having him be lighter than this background, even though that means his body might be closer to the gold in value. Yeah, that's a good point too. Sarah says fire would be closer to him than the background, wouldn't it? Yes, and so that's another point in favor of having him be lighter than the background, because this will be lighting him up too. So actually we could have, he doesn't have to be a single value. He could be lighter here, so he'll still be darker than the flame. So we're going to add a little bit of hatching just to show this. He's still going to be darker than the flame, but as we go farther away from the flame, he can get a little darker. So like way down here, he could be darker. Then that way we could get a little bit of the best of both worlds, having a little bit more contrast of his body on the pile of gold, and plenty of contrast of him in front of this darker background. Yeah! Thanks for that great point. Yes, another reason. So this background, I really would want it to be I'm going to have to layer a lot. Because right now, the crows are standing out really well, but that's because I used the black marker. So I'm going to have to be extra careful, but I think this is great. I'll put a star on this and an arrow. Boom! What time is it? Oh, we're even past time. But this is perfect. Hooray, we figured it out. Let me bring my camera in closer. I realized that I could have had this closer for you. Sorry I didn't do that. You could have seen it better. Oh well. Here's a better close-up view of these final sketches. And I guess I'll go through these as a little wrap-up for the end of the stream. These new thumbnails that I did today as well. I think this is why it's so important to get time in between working on your project. Doing it all in one go, which is what I used to do, it doesn't give you time to digest your own ideas and then come up with new ideas. But thanks to having that space between yesterday and today, I don't think I would have come up with this yesterday. I was running on empty by the end of yesterday's stream. So, and then even sketching this first one, second one, because for some reason when I started sketching it bigger, I drew this part of him totally different and I liked it way more, and so it even evolved drawing it bigger. So here's I'll hold it up to see the final one. This is the one that next week I will draw this at full size, which is 4 by 6 inches. I'm pretty excited about this. Like I said, this is me getting to do fan art, and I didn't know it. Didn't know my first illustration of the year would be fan art. But let's call that good for today. Let's find out if anybody is streaming, if there's anybody to raid. Okay, I've got to click on following. Anybody working on art? Well, that one hasn't started yet. Let's go see Yasmin Arts again. Like I said yesterday, I like to, if multiple people are streaming, I like to go visit whoever is got the less amount of viewers. So let me reorganize my space real quick. I'll put this like this so you can still see, sort of. It's not as interesting to watch me type, so reorganize my cameras a little bit. Okay. Let's open up a new instance of Twitch, new Twitch tab. So I like to make sure that the raid actually works. /raid Yasmin Arts. Make sure I spelled that correctly. Okay. I hit go on starting the raid. I won't actually raid until a few seconds after I finish my farewell. So I will be back tomorrow at the same time as usual. But for Chibi Friday, we're going to be finishing the Steve the Otter Chibi. So I hope to see you then. But either way, thank you so much for joining me today and chatting with me and resubscribing, everybody. You're totally making my day, making my week. This is my first week back. So we will go raid in a few seconds. I just want to make sure my messages get through because I was informed that I was cutting myself off by raiding too quickly because of the delay between my speaking and it actually being delivered to you. Okay, I clicked the button and it worked. So, if you are still on my stream now on Twitch or watching the recording on YouTube, that's it for me, as I said, and I will be back tomorrow. Hope to see you then for Chibi Friday. Thank you for watching.